Okay, so hello and welcome back to another Unity tutorial. In this one we're going to be continuing on with the inventory and item series, or item inventories, whatever it's called. Don't really have a name for it, but anyway. In this one we're going to be continuing and making stackable items, but before we do that, there is a problem that we'll come across if we do it just the way we've got it now. So there'll be some tweaking we're going to do before this video, like right now. Don't worry, it's not much, just make sure you pay attention to this, otherwise if you just skipped ahead and you'd have problems. So the problem is, we're using scriptable objects, which are great, they are good. There's one problem with them though, which is if you change them in runtime or in editor when you're playing, they're gonna get changed. Now, technically, if you change them in build mode when you've exported it, they actually go back to what they were before you open the game, but that still doesn't work for what we want to do, because the problem is, let's say I have arrows in slot 1, and I have arrows in slot 2, and then I change something on the arrows in this slot, it's gonna get changed on that one. So if I was storing like how many's in this stack on that, the problem is that it would, if I increase this to stack of 2, that would be stack of 2 as well. So the problem is they share, if multiple things reference the same object, then they share the data. So the way you deal with that, or at least the way I've figured out to do it and the way I use in my game, and it works fine, so I don't see any problems with this, is you have, so these are type item, all right? We've made an item type, and, oops. They're all, these items are from there. I made this one off the thing when I was testing. But what we need to do is we need to have an item script object, for each inventory slot, and we need to have one object as what a base slot is. And instead of actually setting a slot equal to an item, we want to just copy the data across. Now it's really easy. It's a one-line command using JSON utility, and I'll explain how to do that. It's really simple. But what it means is when we put an item into another slot, we don't physically put the object there. We just clone the data across. So think of it as this is all your data for a minor health potion, and then when you add a new one to your inventory, you just copy this data onto that slot. And then when you close the game, yes, it will stay the same, but what we're going to do for now is we're going to make it so that when you press play, it goes through each slot in the inventory and just resets it to a blank slot. And then in an upcoming video, I'll show you about saving and loading so that you can actually choose to save and load from files for your inventory. So it'll all build up on it. So anyway, let's get into it. So item class. We're going to add a new type. Let's first of all rename this type from default to basic. This will just be like the kind of items you get in your inventory, the trash items that just like don't do anything, they're just there and you can sell them. But we're gonna add one before that, which is gonna be empty slot, so we'll just call it empty slot, like that. There we go. Now, and then this will be type basic. Now one thing is, just generally as a good architecture when coding, is you keep your enums in a separate folder. So what we're going to do is we're going to just cut this line here, public enum types. I'm going to cut that, and we're actually going to change it to item type, so make sure you just rename this to item types, and we'll call this item typer, and this is going to be item types dot, basic. I'm going to call it basic. So just save that, and then go to your project and create a new script, and just call it item types. Make sure it's the same name as whatever you're calling your enum, and just paste it in here. You don't need anything else, and just this is the standard way to format it, so you have it like so. There you go. And then when you want to add new types, you just put a comma and add a new one. And as you see, these all have values like 0, 1, 2, so you can actually reference the number, but it makes more sense just to reference the actual word, the type of enum. Now the thing is, since they have numbers, that's how Unity actually stores them. So if something is of type basic, it doesn't store the word basic in string, it just stores the number 1 because it's less data. So what happens is, if you add something before something else, all the ones with that particular thing can shift. So you want to make sure that, for example, if we close this now, make sure this is right. Just give it a second. Did we do something wrong? Item types. Public enum item types. Save. Okay, that'll fix itself. Good. All right. So now if I go back to our items, they might be wrong, but it's fine because we're gonna be doing some messing around with these anyway. So arrows should be what? Ammunition. Basic sword should be weapon. Health potion should be consumable, and that's that. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a folder, and this folder is gonna be called inventory slots, and we're going to go in here. I'm going to create a new item, and we'll just call it inventory slot. Should we call it 1 or 0? Because index starts from 0, but it's the first inventory slot. Well, I'm going to call it 1, just because even though it will be 0 in the list, because we've named the slots like this 1 to 20, so we can easily say, you know, 1 to 20. This will be slot 1. I did not mean to put a hashtag after it. So inventory slot 1. And we'll just make this as what a blank slot is. So we'll just, you know, have no anything there, price 0, type empty slot. So that's an empty slot. And we're going to, we need 20 of these. So let's just, as you notice, when you duplicate them with Control D, it actually increments the number. Now, I might have pressed it too many times. Let's just wait for it to catch up. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so now we've got these 20. And what we can do is we can go to our inventory handler, which we already have. We've got an item list of 20. Let's set it to 0 and then lock the panel, this part of the inspector, and just shift select all 20 and drag them into item list. So now we've got all these 20 items as part, that is the inventory now. You know, these are the inventory slots. Now, as I said, if we put something in that slot, then it's going to save it. So what we want to do is each time we start, we want to, you know, we want to refresh these all to be blank. So what we can do is we can create another one here. Well, we'll just have a separate one here called empty slot. And this is just going to store, just like an item. You know what, actually, I'll put this in the items. And I missed. Oops. Items. So this just works like it's something that you clone from. Okay, this is one that you clone from, so unlock. Empty slot, it's just empty slot, nothing on it. And what we want to do is we want to store that in the inventory handler. So let's go to the inventory script. We want to have a, let's have it like here. Public item empty slot. All right, so this is just so that whenever we start, we're never going to change this empty slot. This is just going to be what an empty slot is. So it's going to be empty slot, okay? It's got an empty slot. Okay. Now, when we add to the inventory, so we've got add, we want to do something different now. So rather than just saying this item in the thing is set to that, we want to say JSON utility, which is, you know, JSON is a like JavaScript friendly data storage, and this will make more sense when I can show you it as a file. If you've watched my how to save and load scriptable objects, then you'll have seen this already, or at least you'll know what JSON is. So from JSON overwrite, so basically we can put in a string, which is literally the data from the JSON file, and an object to overwrite. So we're going to pass in the data that we want to put onto the slot. So whenever we add an item, we want to put item. So this thing that we're passing in, we're going to shove its JSON data onto item list I. So they're both the same. Oh, cannot item to string. Well, why is that? Because I need to actually convert this to string. Yeah. So sorry, JSON utility again. Utility dot to JSON and then pass that in. So it's basically what this is doing is it's converting the item that we've been passed in into string format, and then it's shoving that onto the other slots. This is like, you know, basically copy and pasting the data onto it. And then we want to update slot and then return true. So that's that way of doing that. Now when we start, currently we just update all slots, but first we're going to quickly do a loop, I'd say. So let's add a private private void reset all slots. We'll just say, you know, for int I equals 0, I is less than item list dot length. There's actually, I think there's a shortcut when you type the for loop to just fill this in as like a default with a, yeah. If someone knows that, that'd be actually quite helpful if someone said, because I've seen people do it and they've never mentioned what the actual shortcut is. I could look it up actually, but yeah, I'm sure someone will mention it. So yeah, loop through all the things in the, all the items, and we want to say, we don't want to do an if, we just want to say every time item list I, well actually, sorry, no, JSON utility dot from JSON overwrite, and we want to put the blank slot, so blank empty slot, yeah, we want to also convert this into a string, so JSON utility dot to JSON, convert this empty slot into, we want to put it onto item list I. There we go. let's have a check if this works. That should work, to be honest. So give that a second. We'll have to change some other part of it as well. I don't know if it's all going to work right now, but it should work for the most part. So if I go to add item, oh wait, well first of all, the problem we're facing is that it's not actually looping. You know what, I don't think I called the function. That would be a good idea. Though one thing, yeah, actually that doesn't matter, because what's happening is, now that we've got items in every slot, it's actually displaying items in every slot. So we now, oops, sorry, we need to go to our UI inventory slot. Here we go. So now rather than checking if the thing equals null, we want to say if that dot item type does not equal item types dot empty slot. Okay. That makes sense, surely. So we're basically, instead of checking if the thing is empty, we're just checking if it's an empty slot type. Now if we add, let me just, oops, inventory. So wait, let me think. So when we add item, we're going to loop for all. All right, here we go. Here's another problem. We're checking if the slot's null, but we want to say if dot item type, oops, if dot item type is equal to, or is not equal to, so wait, it's not equal to, what's that if it's equal, I can't speak, sorry, start again. We now want to check when we're adding an item for an empty slot. So this is, we're going to check if the type is empty slot. So if the item type is equal to dot empty slot, then we do the pasting onto it. Okay, that should be everything I need to change. But as I said, like if you change one thing, you sometimes have to change others to work with it. There you go, add new items, drag them around. Yeah, that should be fine. So now if I actually go to our inventory slots, you have a look on the side. The problem is, actually, that it says we've got something in slot 1, 3, and 7, which we do. Well, actually, now it's saying we don't actually have anything in 7 here. Now, the problem is because we're dragging them around, so when I press play, it should actually refresh all these. Let's just make sure that works. Yep, so we clone our empty slot onto them, so that works. The resetting works, good. Now we have to care about the dragging. So normally what happens when we drag onto it, we're setting items equal, which is not what we want to do, because as we know, that causes problems. So when we do drop an item on a slot, we want to treat it differently. So we want to say if the slot we're dragging onto is null, so rather than that, I want to say dot item type. So if it's equal to item types dot empty slot. So if we're dragging onto an empty slot, we want to set the we want to clone. So I want to say JSON utility dot from JSON overwrite, and we want to convert the item dropped items. We want to convert dropped items. So it's JSON utility dot to JSON. We want to convert dropped item to JSON, and the object we're overwriting is that one. So we're saying we're gonna convert the dropped item into JSON and clone it onto whatever that is in the list, and then on here it's saying inventory instance.item list. The drag handler. What is it doing here? Oh, sorry, this is saying the one that we're dragging from is now null. So rather than doing that, we want to, in here we also should probably store what an empty slot is. We don't need to. We can just reference it from the instance, the inventory instance actually. So let's just do it on a new line so it's easier. So JSON utility from JSON overwrite. So now we want to be putting a blank slot. So we can say inventory dot instance dot blank dot empty slot. But obviously we need to convert it again. Sorry. So JSON utility dot to JSON that, and we want to put it onto this slot. So that's that. Now, first of all, we make sure it works, then we'll make it look nice some other time, and also probably caching some things just to store them when we don't need to, write them every time. But for now, it will work. And we want to do like kind of the same here. So this is when the there is already an item there. So obviously we're storing a temporary item. So what we want to do is we want to put we want to do this line. So this is what it's doing, is it's setting this slot to the dropped item. So dropped item to this slot. That works. Done. We've already got that line. And let's just paste it again. So what's this one doing? It's putting the temporary item into the slot. So rather than dropped item, we want to put temp item. Okay. Okay. As far as I know, that's everything. Now we're gonna obviously make sure it is everything. But so far this is actually going pretty well. This is a step that needs to be taken for it to actually all work nicely. So let's just make sure these are all empty now. So empty, empty, empty. Yeah, it works well. So now if we add, it works. We drag, it works. Now let's see. Slot 1 is now empty, and if I drag to it, it's got something in it. Drag away, it's empty. Let's say I drag it onto the last slot. If I go to the last slot, it's got the thing on it. It's a weapon. So now, actually, when we do all the inventory manipulation, moving stuff around, swapping, it actually does work perfectly. So each slot has the right data on it. And if it's an empty slot, it says, empty slot. So that it's an empty slot. So that's all you have to check. Instead of null, you check empty slot. So that works fine. Now, the actual part of the video. I know this obviously took quite a while, but it was necessary for us to do. I'm going to quickly go into when you add an item to make it stack, and then depending on the length of the video, I could also add when you drag onto other slots, the stacking. So we're going to quickly do stacking. So let's quickly go to slot. Under the image, we're going to add UI text. Text. Wow, I'm blind. Text is at the top. That's why I was blind. Let's go to this. Just make it square. So we'll go for like 40 by 40. Put it at the bottom right. Do that. Put like by times 99. Give it a font size. Does it look alright there? You can read it. It's fine. Alright, so that's all we really need for the actual slot. Now, what we can do is we can just call this stack. It's a text component. We'll delete these 20 slots. And one thing I should have done ages ago is I'm going to make a slot prefab. And we're going to then go to the inventory slot. We're going to store the stack because we need to be able to change it and update it. So then we can just say the stack for this is this text. We'll apply it to the prefab, and then we can just duplicate, and we got the prefab in every slot. Ignoring the fact that it says 90, it doesn't matter because when we start, it's going to update that. So what do we want to do with that? We want to wait one sec. I'm actually it's fine. So now we want to whenever we update the slot, we want to check for stacks. So where are we? Here we are. So as well as just checking, is it an empty slot? If not, set the icon. After we've set the icon, we then want to do an if inside here. So we want to say if inventory dot instance dot item list, and then actually, what I should do is I can't be bothered doing it now. Actually, you know what? No, I'll do it. Okay, private in slot index. I should have done this a while back, and then we'll say void start slot index is equal to inventory dot transform dot get sibling index, because then everywhere I've used get sibling index, I can just use slot index transform dot get slot index transform parent. No, actually, for this one it's different because that's the slot index of the other one. But actually, we can store that in there as well. No, wait, we can just say event.get compare drag dot. No, it's different for that one. Sorry, that is the one that's different. So transform.getSiblingIndex, transform.getSiblingIndex. Where else have we got transform.getSiblingIndex? We've got it there. We've got it there. Have we got any other transform.getSiblingIndex? Transform.getSiblingIndex. Oh, and there. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's all, because this is getSiblingIndex, and it's only in those two places where we need to. Okay, item list, slot index. So if that slot dot, and then we actually need to, we need to go to our item class and give them two more components. We need a public int for current stack equals 1, and a public int for max stack, which is equal to 1 by default. Because we need to store on each slot, you know, how many is in it and what's the maximum. That quickly means that we have to update our current items, but obviously we've only got 4, so it's fine. So we need to say arrows have a max stack of 99, basic solid stack of 1, empty slot stack of, we'll say 0 and 0 for empty slot, and then minor health maybe 5 max. Okay, that works. Good. So obviously they store that value, which is what we need. So that now we can actually check if the current stack is greater than 1. So if there's you know, something in that stack, then we want to say stack dot get stack dot text is equal to, and then we'll have an x for like how many times we've got it. Then we want inventory dot instance dot item list slot index dot current stack dot toString. So now it'll say, like, if we've got 10 items, it'll say x10, and then we'll say else. So if we haven't got more than one item, we'll just say stack dot text is equal to blank string, because we don't want it to have any string. So there we go. And now when we add an item to the inventory, we want to, first of all, before we do any of that looping, we want to do another loop, which is the same. So for that, boom. Whoops, I messed that up. So we want to loop through them all, and we want to say if item list I dot item name, dot item name. If the name of the thing is equal to the item again passed in dot item name, then we want to say if inventory. I keep going to inventory items. It's just to call it item list. Item list dot current stack. Item list I dot current stack. If that's less than item list I dot max stack. So if we've still got space left in the stack, we'll just say item list I dot current stack plus plus, which increases it by 1 because we're adding 1 to the stack. And then we'll update the inventory, so update slot UI, and we'll return true because we've increased the stack there. So let's have a go. Play, and it should, hopefully, when it updates at the start, get rid of the 99s. Oh, it only did it for the first slot because I've been silly and not reset this. So inventory slots we want to set back to 0, and then lock it. We only have to do this now. We don't have to do it ever again because we've used prefabs, which I should have used last time, but kind of just didn't get around to doing it. So now, if we change it, they'll be changed. So add. So they are the swords, and swords don't have. Well, I need to unlock this. Swords don't stack. So let's get something that stacks. So arrows. We're going to start adding arrows now. Add. Arrows stack up to 99, so that's going to go for a long time. So let's instead start adding health potions, which stack up to 5. As soon as you've got to 5, it starts adding into a new slot. Now, this works, but maybe, as you see there, we got a slight problem, which was when we swapped them, the 2 stack kind of disappeared. We haven't really catered for the whole, the stack count. Actually, no, that's just my bad, because we haven't updated UI when we... We haven't really taken stacking and dropping into account yet, so we'll do that in the next video, because at the moment this video's gotten long enough and I've already remade it all kinda and got the stacking working. So next video, actually no, I'll set this as a task for you guys to do on your own, and then obviously at the start of next video I can cover it. So what you need to basically do now is you need to make it so that when you drag an item onto another item, if when you add them together it's less than like the max stack, you just combine them into one item because, you know, they're less than the max stack. If they are more, then maybe you'll swap them or whatever. However you want it to interact when you drag an item onto another one, that's the same type. If it's a different type, you just want them to swap anyway. So that's up to you to get done for next video. Obviously I will cover it at the start, so don't worry. But I hope this makes sense, and I hope you understand why I went back and changed everything. So because you can't just have scriptable objects referenced in multiple places and expect them to be independent, because they're not. So it's good to have like almost like a database of items, and then you can clone them onto the slots and save that. So currently I've made it wipe them at the start of every time you press play, but in an upcoming video, probably in 2 videos time, because next video will be finishing off the stacking and also some other tweaks, then we'll get on to saving and loading the inventory data to your computer. So yeah, that's it for this video. If you like what you see and want to see more, then obviously please leave a like and subscribe, it'd mean a lot. If you haven't already joined our Discord server, that would be nice. But apart from that, thanks for watching, and goodbye.